Wild Soul HOPECast, Episode 11. Stop carrying what isn't yours. Pull them into your peace. Sponsored by When the Soul Remembers Hope, the Hope Method, and the Hope and Honey Apothecary. What if the exhaustion you've been feeling isn't because you're doing too much, but because you're carrying things that were never yours to begin with? What if the tension in your body isn't your anxiety, but the echo of someone else's unprocessed emotion that your nervous system decided to hold? Because today we're talking about something that most people don't even realize they're doing. They walk into a room and unconsciously begin managing it. They soften their tone, adjust their energy, read every facial expression, not because they want to, but because somewhere along the way, their body learned, if I keep the peace, I can stay safe. And maybe you don't even notice it while it's happening, but afterward, yeah, afterward you feel it. That relentless heaviness, that mental replay, that exhaustion that doesn't match the moment. And you think to yourself, why am I so tired? Nothing even happened. But we all know something did happen. You left yourself to hold everyone else. And today we're going to gently, powerfully call you back. Hi, love. Today we're talking about something most people don't realize they're doing: carrying emotions that were never theirs to begin with, taking on tension, absorbing reactions, managing the energy in the room just to keep the peace. And if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, even when nothing big happened, this episode is going to show you why. But before we go any further, let's take a moment and regulate to radiate with a clean breath. Inhale slowly through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhale even slower through the mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, inhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take a moment to allow your shoulders to drop. Let your jaw soften. Let your body know you don't have to manage anything right now. Because today we're talking about a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, the kind that lives in your nervous system, the kind that comes from absorbing emotion, anticipating reactions, softening your truth, over explaining your existence, holding the emotional weight of the room. And maybe no one raised their voice. Maybe nothing big happened, but your body still left the interaction like it had just run a marathon. That's not random. That's not you being too sensitive. That is your nervous system working overtime to regulate something that was never yours to regulate. And here's the truth about it that might shift everything for you. You are not exhausted because you care too much. You are exhausted because you've been carrying too much that isn't yours. And today, we're going to learn how to set it down, not by shutting your heart, but by strengthening your center. Because today, we're talking about a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, the kind that comes from absorbing, managing, softening, over explaining, holding the emotional weight of everyone around you. And maybe no one said anything quote unquote wrong, but you still left feeling drained. That's not random. That's energy. That's overfunctioning. That's your nervous system trying to regulate a room that was never yours to carry. Take a breath. You are not weak for feeling this. You are, however, aware. And today, we're going to talk about how to stop carrying what isn't yours without shutting down your heart. By the end of this conversation, you're going to understand something deeply. Why your body and nervous system feels responsible for other people's emotions. Why you get pulled into emotional situations and dynamics so easily and quite frankly that you never intended to join. And we're going to walk through what it actually means to stay grounded in yourself and how to shift from being pulled into chaos to becoming the one who stabilizes it, not by controlling others, but by learning how to stay regulated no matter what's happening around you, and how to stop absorbing energy without becoming cold, distant, or disconnected. Because this is not about becoming someone who doesn't care. This is about becoming someone who is so rooted in themselves that they no longer get lost inside someone else's storm. We're going to talk about the origins of this pattern, the illusion of emotional responsibility, the difference between empathy and merging, and what it actually means to become a nervous system leader in your life. Not someone who controls the room, but someone who stabilizes it by staying anchored. You didn't become this way by accident. This is important. Do you hear me? You didn't become this way by accident. Because I never want you to listen to this and think, what's wrong with me? Because nothing is wrong with you. Something adapted within you. At some point in your life, your body learned a very intelligent strategy. If I can read the room, I can stay safe. So you became hyper aware, emotionally intelligent, quick to soothe, careful with tone, responsible for harmony. That is ancient, tribal, instinctual. In early human history, survival depended on attunement. You had to know who was safe, who was unstable, and when tension was rising, because missing those cues could cost you everything. So your nervous system became skilled, hyper aware, emotionally intelligent, deeply intuitive. You learned to notice shifts in tone, anticipate reactions, soothe before conflict escalated, become what the moments needed. And that, my dear, was not weakness. That was brilliance. That was survival. But what kept you safe then? It's exhausting you now. Because somewhere along the way, observation turned into absorption. Awareness turned into responsibility, and empathy turned into self-abandonment. Are you still with me? Because this is where it all comes together. I learned that every emotional reaction carries a story, because this is where it actually happens. You're in a conversation, something small shifts, a tone, a look, a sentence with an edge, and instantly your body tightens. Not because of what you said, no, but because of what your nervous system remembers. And before your mind even catches up, your body has already decided. We need to fix this. Alert, alert, something is wrong. The vibe is shifting. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Am I wrong? I don't think so. So what do? You explain more than necessary. You soften your truth. You try to soothe the moment, take responsibility for the tension, and just like that, in the blink of an eye, you are no longer present. You're performing regulation. And here's the deeper truth. Every emotional reaction carries a story. I'm being disrespected. I'm being abandoned. I'm not being heard. I'm being attacked. And when you step into that energy without realizing it, you don't just witness their story. No, you enter it. You start defending, fixing, proving, explaining. Now your whole nervous system is no longer grounded. It's entangled because now you're in the story too. And afterward, you feel drained because your body didn't just witness the storm and subsequent chaos. No, it joined in and it participated in it. I want to take a moment and share some excerpts from the books that I've written, When the Soul Remembers Hope and The Hope Method. And I'm going to read from When the Soul Remembers Hope, Chapter 10. This is where I found my own sense of self and kind of what I learned from it, creating a new inner world. You're allowed to outgrow the version of you who survived. You are allowed to become someone who thrives. Unknown. Type 1 diabetes is not often spoke of with the reverence it deserves, but it is an invisible thief. It demands vigilance. It drains finances, patience, and spirit. It is a disease that never takes a break, and as a caregiver, neither did I. There were midnight alarms, carb counts, insurance battles, and the ever-present fear that one misstep could be fatal. And yet, I kept going. For my child, for my partner, for our family. The demands grew heavier physically, financially, and emotionally. Our 4 children were growing up in a household shaped with resilience, where the rhythm of life was often dictated by appointments, treatments, and the unknown. There were no major family vacations, no spontaneous getaways. Our calendar was filled with responsibilities and routines that often left little room for rest. And yet, through the way we chose to frame our experience, our children felt secure. They did not see our life as lacking. They believed our decisions were rooted in protection and love. To them, staying close to home was not a burden. It was a choice grounded in care. We were not rich in the material sense, but we were abundant in presence, commitment, and connection. In 2025, after more than 3 decades together, we made the mutual decision to end our marriage. It was not a decision made in anger, but in reverence. We honored the journey we had walked through hardship, devotion, and growth, and chose to release each other with the same care with which we had once promised forever. That chapter of our lives was written in sacrifice and strength, and I carry it forward with deep respect and gratitude. And yet, as I stood in the silence that followed, a deeper grief emerged, one that went beyond the ending of a relationship. What began to surface was the sorrow of betrayal trauma, not in a single dramatic moment, but in a slow, soul eroding accumulation of broken promises and unmet emotional needs. Not all betrayal is physical. Some of the deepest wounds are carved by the breaking of vows, the sacred words we believed were inviolable. I'll never leave you. You can trust me. We're in this together. These promises become soul anchors. When they are broken, it is not just the relationship that ends, it is the imagined life, the version of you who believed. This kind of rupture severs trust, not only in others, but in ourselves. We begin to question, was it ever real? Did I just waste years of my life? Was I not enough? Did I miss the signs? And even when the ending is mutual, the heartbreak still arrives, not just as loss, but also as the death of a dream. Vow betrayal, when someone breaks the sacred covenant of partnership, shatters something foundational. Promise betrayal, when someone repeatedly says one thing and lives another, creates a deep emotional dissonance, and both are griefs that deserve reverence. Because even when no one dies, the dream does. And that grief, too, is holy. Hope gave me a way to move through it, not by bypassing the pain, but by honoring it. I learned to harness my awareness of the wounds I was carrying, optimize my healing by choosing truth over denial, practice compassion with myself when shame tried to take hold, and energize my spirit through new, honest connection. When trust is fractured, whether by illness, circumstance, or another's actions, it is easy to internalize the rupture. We do not just grieve the loss of relationship, we grieve the loss of safety within ourselves. But with time and with hope, we begin to rebuild a different kind of trust, not just with others, but also with our own heart. Healing does not just change how you feel, it changes how you live. After years of defining yourself through responsibility and resilience, something powerful happens when you begin to reconnect with your own heart. Once you have met your shadow with compassion and welcomed your inner child home, a new reality starts to emerge. You are no longer reacting from survival, you are creating from truth. You are not searching for love in others. You are becoming love in how you show up, care for yourself, and move through the world. This is the quiet revolution of healing, the realization that the goal was never to return to who you were before the pain. That version of you did not have the tools, the voice, or the clarity you carry now. The most radical shift in trauma recovery is this: you stop striving to become who you once were and instead rise into someone stronger, softer, and abundantly whole because of what you have lived through. You are no longer piecing yourself together for others. You are coming home to yourself. And from this new center, identity becomes less about what roles you fulfill and more about how deeply you embody your truth. Once you begin returning to yourself, not the version shaped by crisis, but the one aligned with truth, you uncover something sacred: the desire to live with intention. This is where purpose begins to reawaken. It often starts quietly, like a whisper beneath the noise. There is more for me. There is life beyond this. Through the HOPE method, harness optimal positive energy, you begin to notice that purpose does not have to be grand or performative. Instead, it lives in the everyday moments when your energy aligns with your truth. Harnessing your energy for you, not just for others, is the first step in reclaiming purpose. It might look like honoring your morning ritual, daily practice, picking up a pen again and saying yes to something that once lit you up. Purpose is less about what you do and more about how you feel while doing it. Hope helps you ground into that feeling. As you reconnect with purpose, you are invited into creative reinvention, the process of becoming, not from lack, but from expansion. So that was the excerpt from chapter 10 of When the Soul Remembers Hope. And now I would like to move on to share with you just a little excerpt from chapter 3 of the Hope Method, when energy becomes remembering. You've been told that healing takes years of therapy, that trauma leaves permanent scars, and that self-help only works if you try harder. You've been taught to think positive, Journal it out, manifest it away, or manifest peace while your body still trembles from grief. You can't meditate yourself whole when fragmentation keeps pulling you apart. Healing is not about force, it's about rhythm. And this is where hope changes everything. There comes a moment, often subtle, often quiet, when you realize we are not merely tired, but deeply disconnected. Disconnected from joy, from clarity, from vitality, and sometimes from the self entirely. It's not always caused by catastrophe. Often it is a slow erosion of our wholeness through small betrayals, the silencing of our voice to keep the peace, the dismissal of our needs to meet others' expectations, the constant override of intuition in exchange for approval. Over time, these quiet ruptures begin to fragment us. The body tenses, the fascia constricts, the heart dulls, the mind numbs, the spirit flickers, inflammation ignites, and sometimes life itself stops feeling real, as if we're living in a simulation. We scroll, perform, produce day after day, but inside we feel hollow, drifting, as though we've stepped outside our own existence. This too is disconnection from our intuition and gut instinct. It makes us forget not only how to feel like ourselves, but also prevents us from living in the highest energetic vibration that was always ours. This book is an invitation to remember, not through performance or perfection, but through presence, through the reclamation of energy, not just physical stamina, but the deeper, primordial kind, the very spark of light that was given to you at conception, the energy that once flowed slowly through your body, your breath, your being, the energy that fuels your creativity, your clarity, your capacity to love and be loved, the energy that grief cannot steal, trauma cannot destroy, and disconnection cannot erase. It may be dim, but it is never gone. It waits for you to return. The Hope Method, harness optimal positive energy, was realized not from ideology, but from lived experience and sacred inquiry. It is not doctrine or dogma, it is a path of restoration, a way of returning to the self through breath, movement, truth telling, silence, and sacred action. You will not find here a quick fix or a shallow promise. What you will find are teachings rooted in ancient wisdom, trauma informed science, and soul centered living. This book will offer you tools, practices, and perspectives that help you remember what is already within you. That's just a small excerpt from chapter 3. I feel like it fits this HOPECast episode this week because of its profound ability to tell us what hope is. Because the truth is, hope doesn't work because of me, it works because of you. Because you've already survived what should have broken you. You've already carried more than most people have imagined. All hope does is give your survival a rhythm, a way home. But a cadence framework is only theory until you live it. And the reason hope works so quickly, so tangibly, is because it begins where other methods end, at the root of your stuck energy. With hope, you'll discover why this method succeeds where so many others fall short, and why once you embody it, you'll never see yourself or your healing the same way again. You're not being asked to dig up every carefully packaged fragment of your past. Instead, the Hope Method shows you how to walk beside what you carry with compassion, steadiness, and light. What you will find with the Hope Method is not a substitute for professional, medical, or psychological care, but a companion for your journey. I'm not a therapist, a physician, or a licensed medical provider. I'm simply a woman who has walked beside her own fragmentation and gathered tools along the way, tools that helped me come back to myself. I'm just a country girl at heart, living in the city, still wishing on dandelion dreams and carrying hope in my pocket, offering what I've learned in case it lights your way too. Because that's the truth of this. Hope doesn't belong only to the polished, the perfect, and the credentialed. It belongs to all of us, the dreamers, the weary, the ones who have been cracked open and are still searching for light. This work may stir tender places in you. Old wounds may surface. If they do, I encourage you to seek the support of your tribe, family, and friends, a trained mental health specialist, counselor, or holistic care provider who can walk with you through the deeper layers. And please take your time. Be kind to yourself. This is not a race. Healing is not built on dramatic leaps, but on small, steady steps. Each tiny adjustment, a pause, a breath, a boundary, a new choice, creates a ripple that changes the energy you carry and the way you experience your life. Over time, these little shifts become transformational, and so it begins. It is here in this current of being that hope takes root. This is where hope becomes more than a concept. This is where it becomes a practice. Harness. Notice the moment your body shifts, that tightening in your chest, that urge to fix, that pull to explain. That is your awareness point. Optimal. Pause, because not everything requires your immediate response. In ancient wisdom traditions, there is a belief that power lives in the pause, because reaction is survival, but pause is sovereignty. Positive. Choose clarity over catastrophe. Not every emotion in the room is a reflection of you. Not every reaction is your responsibility. Energy. Do not merge. Feel without absorbing. Witness without carrying. Care without collapsing. You are allowed to remain in your own body because you are not required to emotionally participate in every moment. Now that we've explored the Hope Method, let's redefine peace, because most people misunderstand it. Peace is not silence, compliance, shrinking, or avoiding conflict. That's not peace. That's self abandonment dressed as harmony. Real peace is regulation. It is the ability to stay grounded even when someone else is not. It looks like slower breath, softer but steady tone, fewer, clearer words, rooted presence. And here's where this becomes leadership. Not the kind of leadership that dominates a room, but the kind that stabilizes it. In many ancient traditions, especially Eastern philosophies, the most powerful person in the room was not the loudest. It was the most regulated, the one who could remain centered no matter what was happening around them, because regulation is influence. When you don't match chaos, you interrupt it. When you don't escalate, You shift the entire dynamic, not by force, but by presence. Instead of matching chaos, you stabilize it, not by controlling others, but by not losing yourself. That's leadership through emotional intelligence. If this feels hard, it's because it is, not because you're failing, but because you're rewiring something deep. If you were raised in chaos, your nervous system adapts to chaos. So calm doesn't feel natural. It feels incredibly unfamiliar. And the nervous system will always choose what is familiar, even if it's exhausted. So stillness can feel unsafe. Silence can feel like tension. Boundaries can feel like rejection. And when someone escalates, your body says, fix this now or something bad will happen. But healing sounds different. Healing says, I can stay steady even if they are not. That is a completely new pattern, and your body needs time to trust it. So, what do you do in the moment? Not perfectly, but intentionally. When crisis rises, slow your breath below the pace of the moment. Lower your tone instead of raising it. Say less because over explaining is often a trauma response. Use grounded statements like, I'm not escalating this, or we can talk when you're calm, or I hear you, I hear what you're saying, and then allow silence. Silence is not failure, silence is containment. And if someone becomes uncomfortable with your calm, that tells you everything you need to know. Because some people rely on chaos to feel in control, and your peace disrupts that. Please notice that when you allow silence, when someone needs chaos to feel powerful, your calm will feel uncomfortable to them. That's not your problem. That's information. That's structural stability. This is where we bring it all home, though, because this is not about detaching from people. This is about staying with yourself while you're with others. Unconditional love does not mean carrying someone's emotions, fixing their reactions, absorbing their pain. It means I can love you without losing me. And that is one of the highest forms of maturity. You can stay open, you can stay compassionate, you can stay connected, and still say, this is where I end and you begin. That is not distance. That is not distance. That is clarity. So as you move through your day today, notice your body. Notice when you feel pulled. Notice when you start to leave yourself. And instead of fixing it, I want you to breathe, stay. Because this isn't about becoming someone new. This is about remembering how to stay with yourself in moments you used to abandon yourself. And that is where everything begins to shift. You're not here to be the emotional shock absorber of the world. You are not here to carry what was never yours. You are allowed to be calm, say less, protect your energy, and remain rooted in yourself. And instead of being pulled into someone else's storm, you can become the presence that invites peace, not forces it, not proves it, but embodies it. Pull them into your peace, and if they can't meet you there, you are still allowed to remain because sometimes all you have left is hope, and sometimes hope is enough. Talk soon.